We're talking top fitting trends of 2025, both off the tee and on the green, with who else but then the one and only Larry Bobka. So we'll have more with Larry coming up, plus some PGA Championship recap on this episode of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Hey golfers, welcome on into the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. No Drew currently, though he'll join the show later as he recorded an interview with Larry earlier this week. Drew has been down in Texas doing some content over at the Colonial and down at our Dallas store, so keep an eye out for that. But we got a great show for you. We got Larry Bobka joining the show once again. He's talking about kind of the top fitting trends he's seen in the Bay in 2025. First, he's going to start off talking about, drivers and the long game, mini drivers, all of that. And then he gets into putting. Who better to talk about putting than Larry Bobka, and specifically on zero torque putters. So stay tuned for that. Before we get there, let's hop right into the turn. And that's where we begin with the PGA Championship. Of course, not the dramatic finish I think we were all hoping for, but Scottie Scheffler kind of ran away with the tournament. It was a 5-stroke victory after a bogey on 18 for his third career major, first one that wasn't a Masters. So big win for Scottie. He had kind of been trending in the right direction, 1-2 weeks prior at the CJ Cup, Byron Nelson, and then comes out at Quail Hollow and just kind of put everyone behind him, just, the back nine especially. He kind of excelled there, especially on that Green Mile stretch where everyone else seemed to fumble both on Saturday and on Sunday. And that ultimately led to his win. Of course, there was the little bit there on Sunday where maybe you thought he was losing it as Jon Rahm had climbed up to tie him for the lead, but then Rahm missed a couple putts. Scottie goes, makes a couple birdies, and then Rahm the wheels came off of his train, and Scottie kind of cruised to his third major championship. So he continues, his move up the all-time great list. I think just based on the last 2 years, what he's been doing has already garnered that attention, and now he's got one more major. How many more can he get? That'll ultimately decide where he kind of ranks among the all-time greats, but definitely someone that is trending in the right direction. And, so Scottie with a big win there. Of course, one of the big storylines of the tournament was the Rory McIlroy's QI10 driver being labeled or being deemed non-conforming during random testing. And it actually turned out that Scottie Scheffler's QI10 also deemed non-conforming prior to the tournament start. And I know a lot of us, that aren't, in the know, or how does that happen? Is he cheating? All this stuff. But then you kind of hear from tour pros and they say like this happens all the time. But you saw a lot of them kind of calling for everyone to get tested rather than just a random 50 people before event. And so I'll be curious to see if that ends up happening. But either way, let's get into Scottie's What's in the Bag. No changes from 2 weeks ago for the most part. Besides, he put a QI35 7-wood in the bag in place of his Strixon ZU85 3-iron. And we've seen him do that a couple times this year, and it's usually course dependent when you need to, hit the ball high, land it soft, as you did at Quail Hollow. Even though they got all that rain, the greens were still playing plenty firm. So in order to keep that ball on the green, Scottie opted for that, and we're seeing that 7-wood continues to become a bigger and bigger trend in golf. It's easier to hit. You're getting higher launch. Just gives players a lot of versatility in their bag with a club. So curious to see if any of you have hopped on that trend with the 7-wood. I know Drew has been testing one. We'll see if he ends up making the decision here soon. But, so 7-wood's there. And then finally, wrapping up the turn here, Drew and I's PGA Championship picks. And, well, it wasn't really much of a contest. I beat Drew by 65 strokes. He had 4 of his 6 golfers miss the cut. So just getting the worst possible score Saturday, Sunday with 3 of them is going to hurt. And then I obviously had Scheffler, which certainly helped. And then Harris English, who kind of snuck up for tied for second, certainly helped me. So that is a 2-1 lead for me on this year's picks. So I will make sure to let Drew hear it when I see him when he gets back from Texas. But yeah, that wraps up the turn, and now we're going to head straight into our interview with Larry Bobka. Of course, Larry's, a renowned club fitter. He's kind of done everything in this business, so who better to talk to about kind of some of the trends we're seeing both in our fitting bays, on the PGA Tour and whatnot. Some of the topics include, you're seeing a lot of PGA Tour pros keep a prior generation driver. They haven't necessarily moved up into the current generation. So Larry kind of dives into why he believes that's happening. He also goes into kind of the mini drivers and why that's become a club that has helped out a lot of golfers and what purpose it kind of serves and what kind of golfers it'll help. And then he gets into the putters, and, zero torque putters are all the rage these days. Obviously Lab Golf kind of being the headliner, but you're seeing every OEM kind of come out with their own version of it now. So Larry kind of dives into those putters and what kind of golfers, those will fit. So here are Drew and Larry talking top fitting trends of 2025.
We now welcome on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. It is Larry legend, Larry Bobka. It's been a while since you've been on the program.
It has been a while.
You've been busy. You went down to Arizona for a while.
I did.
Good time of year to do that. When
yes.
It's, what is it, December, January, February?
Yeah, except I came back 2 weeks too early. I came back when it was like 15 below. So.
Well, that's nice now.
Yeah,
We're starting to get our Arizona weather stride here up in Minnesota.
Beautiful. It's beautiful now.
And it's going to be beautiful for a while, or at least it appears to be. So,
right.
Well, Larry, you've been fitting now all year, and you've been noticing some things. And, of course, your wisdom is quite valuable for us and for the viewers and listeners. So just wanted to get you in here and talk clubs, talk equipment, talk what you're seeing. And just first wanted to, one of the things that we've noticed, there's been some buzz about it a little bit as well, is just that drivers, specifically like 2025 models, aren't like winning a ton or winning at the clip they I would say typically do. And so like I kind of wanted to just get your thoughts on, do you think there's a reason for that? Is there, right now we've seen, a couple G440 LST. This is talking PGA Tour.
Right.
G440 LST wins. We've had an Elite Triple Diamond win. But then after that,
right.
You can include Titleist GT. They've had several wins technically released last year. But I guess, is there a reason for that, you think? Or is it just maybe the stuff from a year or two ago is just so good?
Well, I think the designers right now are kind of at that threshold of, hey, the ball speed's about as fast as we can get. I mean, one of the things that I've seen across the board, I would say, in the new drivers is definitely the forgiveness is better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The TaylorMade, the QI35 is definitely better than the 10 was. The Elite definitely is definitely more forgiving. The Pings are more forgiving. But from a standpoint of speed, we're not seeing any kind of major jumps, and I don't think you're going to see any major jumps anymore.
Right.
I mean, you think about it. I mean, we're, the COR is as fast as we can go. The ball's as fast as we can go. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me how many people walk in the Bay that are, I don't want to say that they're not really golfers. They're golfers, but they, they're
not tour players.
No, and the speed they have is incredible. I mean, I had a guy behind me in the Bay over there in Minnetonka, and Ian was working with him, and this guy's carrying 328. I mean, it's just crazy. Where's he gonna see? Where's he gonna see the difference?
Yeah.
I personally myself, excuse me, I've usually play UST shafts. Well, Ventus White came out.
Mm-hmm.
49-gram shaft. It's lighter than grip. Let's throw it in there. I've been using that for the first 3 rounds of the year, and, it's just easier.
Yeah.
Have I picked up a little distance? Yeah, maybe from that. But, the wholesale jump, it's going to be very hard, and I think that's going to be an industry issue. Is where does the next driver go? How do I as a company, if I was still back at Titleist or Wilson, how do I market my driver to be longer, straighter?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see anybody hit a foul ball. You watch a PGA Tour event, nobody hits a foul ball anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The driver head's as big as a tennis racket. It's forgiving. It's fast. These guys are not going to hit bad shots.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the general public is getting better and better at, because of the forgiveness of the driver. I mean, I had a guy yesterday that really is a 13 handicap, about 27, 28 years old, wants to get better. Okay. Well, he made some pretty poor swings with the with a 440 LST. And, the impact's high heel, and the ball's going 245 down the middle of the fairway. That's what a modern driver can do for you. And that's what I've seen in the newer models. Have I seen them being faster than the models before? Not really.
So with that said, it's almost as if, because of the forgiveness aspect being more of where these newer drivers are taking it up a notch, it's almost as if the general public or, amateur golfers, whatever you want to call them, are almost going to see more benefit than tour players. And maybe that's why you're seeing tour players sticking with something they've used a little more.
Yeah, because they hit it on they hit it on the center of the face a heck of a lot more than you and I do.
Yeah, that's true.
So they're not going to see as much benefit. But on the other side of that too, eventually it's going to be like, they'll probably switch out their models.
Yeah.
But for right now, if you're not seeing the massive change, I mean, I can go back to the years even, working on tour with Titleist that, we'd bring out a new driver and it's like, some guys would switch right away.
Yeah.
Especially somebody if they're not driving the ball really well, it's really easy to get them into a new driver.
Right.
Because they're looking for something new. They're looking for a change. But the ones that are driving well and playing well, it's a hard change, and you get somebody like Rory that's playing really well and some of the other, why should I jump into the new one if this one's working just fine?
Yeah.
It's just going to be a difficult task. I mean, one of the things that we still see on a daily basis is people coming in and the loft isn't correct, the shaft isn't correct. Maybe they're playing a G430 max when they need an LST model, putting them in the 440 like this kid yesterday. I mean, it changes driving totally. So we're still with the fittings. We're still seeing a lot of upside to the new drivers, but it seems to be the combo of the shaft head style that's helping.
Yeah, right. And it's like, to your point, the speed distance off the center of the face doesn't seem to be, jumping up, because there is a limit set by the USGA on that COR. And so you can only really be so fast off the center of the face. So from there, it's these incremental little things, you hear about. I think there's, a couple of the companies have, said their club head speed is aerodynamically shaped to increase your swing speed fractionally, right? Little things like that might be making a difference, especially for, maybe amateur golfers that aren't hitting it 300 down the middle with every tee shot like the guys on tour.
Yeah, I mean, I played yesterday, and I've switched from the AI Smoke to the Elite. Mm-hmm. Okay, put the Elite now on this Ventus shaft, and I hit a couple drives yesterday. I played yesterday morning. I hit a couple drives on the toe, which I didn't even want to look to see where they went, and they're little draws down the right hand side of the fairway, and you're like, okay,
right,
If that was another club, it probably wouldn't have been that good.
Yeah.
And then the center of the face is great. But the big thing is loft. I personally, I'm going to be 65 next week. So club head speed is not increasing by any stretch of the imagination. So I've just keep lofting up my driver. So I've always played a low spin. I played a 425 LST for a while. Been playing the Callaway drivers, the triple diamonds. Well, that triple diamond now, that 10.5 is now lofted up to 12.5. So I can hit it up in the air with no spin.
Yeah.
That's the other side that people don't realize is, tour players, they work all the time. They hit shots they know. They have guys standing there with wrenches helping them out. Okay. Most people don't realize that they're struggling, and it's like, man, you need some loft.
Yeah.
Especially now. Clubs don't spin. The ball doesn't spin. I mean, nothing spins anymore. It needs to be needs to be launched in the air.
I feel like we're going to get to that topic in a future segment here. We talk about kind of some distance and some control and how spin is a factor there. But kind of in wrapping up the driver portion here, I just wanted to get your take too on buying used versus new right now, and sort of the benefit maybe of these used models. If you are a good player, an experienced player, and you're thinking about, well, should I get something that's a year or two old or going for something brand new? I know, again, it's obviously dependent on the player's budget and things like that, but I guess how big is that gap right now between something that's a year or two old versus modern right now?
Not as big as it has in the past, for sure. Mm-hmm. I would not be afraid to, and we get even some new tour van fitting. Somebody's like, well, hey, is there a model a year or two behind that might? Well, actually for some people, there's some models that actually spun a little more that actually help them a little bit more. So, we're never afraid to introduce, like on the ping side, a 430 versus a 440. I mean, if I've got something that matches up pretty well with them, a 430 and a 440, that it's going to be pretty close, to make that decision. One of the ones that we've had, the Cobra Dark Speed. Yeah. I mean, that's been a great driver, especially, and I'll pat myself on the back for helping start in UST, but a lot of those have come with the link shaft in there. Yep. Which has been absolutely great, especially for some stronger players. All of a sudden they hit it, and it's like, I've never hit a Cobra driver before. And they go, well, got a really good head with a really good golf shaft in there. Yeah. So, if you can find the one that matches up with you really good, it's not a bad thing. I'm kind of like Bernhard Langer in my bag. I hate to admit it, but I still have a couple Adams hybrids in the bag. Don't
be afraid to admit it. I mean,
I've got a bunch of, I've tried, I've got different manufacturers and put the same shafts in there, and I just keep going back to, push comes to shove, I just keep going back to those because one, they got UST shafts in there, of course. Right. And, and they're comfortable. I get good flight from them. So, yeah. It's hard when you got something that flies really good. It's really hard to take it out of the bag, and that's exactly what PGA Tour players are seeing right now. Yeah, I got something that flies really good. It goes plenty far. Okay, what they have done and what I've seen a little bit more is a little bit of the mini driver craze. Yeah. I have definitely sold more mini drivers and have more people come in. I mean, I had a guy that hated hitting 3-woods, but he's like, man, my golf course, I need to hit 3-wood like 3 or 4 times because my driver goes too far. I mean, I took a 13.5 Elite, lofted it up to 15.5. I mean, that's a big head with a lot of loft on it. Right. And I'm like, and he's hitting it in the bay, and it's really good. And he's like, oh, I'm just going to get this one perfect. Put a new grip on it for me. I got a text message about 5 hours later, and he goes, man, I left you, and I went and played. And he goes, it's my favorite club of all time. He goes, I hit this thing so good. Same thing. I had another guy that is driving the ball farther now, wants something that he's more comfortable with, that, hey, if I'm not driving it good, I want something that goes 245 or 250, and, I'm not comfortable hitting the 3-wood. So I think, to me, the bigger craze is going small versus the large 460 drivers. I think companies, between the Titleist, the new R7 plays really good, the Elite plays really good, there's a niche there that I think a lot of people are seeing, and actually for some of the less accomplished players that have trouble hitting a driver, a shorter, more lofted club, it's pretty good. I mean, we see a lot of speed off those things too. Yeah. They're fast. They're not slow, and and it's always
plenty of distance.
Well, and it's always kind of been there. I mean, it's this especially for the better player, there's always been kind of this driver A, driver B. I mean, if you look back to the days when guys were still playing Persimmon Woods on tour, well, what did TaylorMade have? TaylorMade comes out with a Tour Spoon, the original one, a Tour Brassy. So, you had a lot of players back then with a driver and a 2-wood. Well, now it's a driver and a 2-wood because especially if you hit it a long way, what does somebody really use? I mean, even you're fat. What do you really use your 3-wood for these days?
It's only tee shots.
Only tee shots.
Yeah.
So
this has been, believe me, a debate within myself here.
So
if I should be playing a mini driver.
If I got a bigger headed driver that's going to give me more forgiveness to hit those tee shots, why wouldn't I do it?
Yeah. The only reason I use my 3-wood off the deck is if I'm 265, 270 plus out.
Well, see, and I'm kind of the same way. I don't use my 3-wood off the deck because I don't have enough speed to get it in the air unless the lie's perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm going to opt against it. But now, since I moved up a set of tees over at Chaska, I got 3 or 4 tee shots where I have to hit 3-wood because there's no room to hit driver.
Yeah.
So to me, 3-woods have really become, and especially there's a club that we've gone longer. We've gone lighter. It doesn't spin as much. The lofts are stronger. There's a club that's really become, we've kind of niched it more towards a tee club than a fairway club for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's way easier to hit a 5-wood or a 7-wood off the ground than it is to hit that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even have mini drivers on the docket, but it's actually a really good thing to bring up. So,
well, it's just it has become. It is a daily conversation.
Yeah.
With players.
Interesting.
For sure.
It probably wasn't a conversation at all 2 years ago.
No.
But
2 years ago it was like, what the heck were they thinking? Bringing out the original one. And I had a guy on Saturday who really wanted and fit his bag really well, but he's like, man, I just want the R7 one because just the graphics look cool and that head cover's really cool, and he's the kind of guy. He's one of my good customers, and he decks it out, everything. So, the bag, he's like, man, this will just fit right. And it worked for him too. That's the other side of it. So, yeah, I would say probably mini drivers are definitely more exciting than 460 versions this year.
Well, we're here with Larry Bobka in the studio. Wanted to move into putters here now, Larry. So specifically, I know there's this craze and this interest on
we don't
zero
want to talk
torque.
about zero torque at all, do
well,
we?
I'm going to bring it up, but you can talk about it as much as you want. But before we get into that, just if you notice anything new that is seemingly being, it's been pretty successful in your putter fittings with Quintech. Anything in particular with a model or a series, or is it kind of just been? It's so player dependent that there's not one that jumps out.
Some of Scotty's new the larger blades where he's moved the center of gravity back a little bit. Can't think of the numbers offhand, but some of those new. So the one where it's silver, black, and
kind of square back,
yeah, kind of square backs where they made them a little bigger. Those are definitely for the blade putters have given a little bit more forgiveness for sure. I've seen those working well. The new Odyssey line, the AI milled one, the silver ones for sure. Great look, especially that 7 with a plumber's neck. I mean, if you're a blade guy and don't want to go all the way to a mallet, and some of that too with that 7, people don't realize if you look at center of gravity, okay. A blade putter is going to be right around the back of the top line. And then you go maybe to a mini mallet, it moves a little farther back, and then a full mallet moves farther back even more. I mean, that's why the moment of inertia goes up. Mm-hmm. But the problem is if I have a little tendency to do this, that big mallet, that center of gravity wants to do that anyway, and it hurts some people. So if you get a kind of a winged blade, it really works pretty good. The Ping Tine, another great model like that, because it keeps the center of gravity forward and gives that player a little bit more forgiveness. Yeah. So those are very popular
Interesting.
models.
I didn't even think about that as it relates to the center of gravity, but it makes sense the way you described it there. We're just having the alteration of the center of gravity being back can actually hurt players if they have that tendency. So
that's why I do. That's why
you do what you do.
That's why I do what I do.
Okay,
but people don't realize it. All they read is, well, this has toe hang, this has zero torque, this has this. They don't even consider the center of gravity of the putter, what the center of gravity of the putter does to their stroke or does to their tendencies.
Right.
For
so,
sure.
Speaking, you mentioned zero torque. It's
sure.
We'll
why
bring
not?
it up.
Never heard about it till this morning.
So, I just need to get your take on it, and I ask because I think it's clearly growing in popularity. These designs, you're seeing something new from all these manufacturers now.
Right.
You're seeing prototypes leaking out from manufacturers that don't have even a model that's out there for the public. So, what I guess if a golfer what would they be struggling with for them to see benefits from this design?
They would be struggling with their path.
Okay.
So I have seen some people that are poor putters that have grabbed zero torque, and it has definitely cut their side spin down. Okay.
Yeah.
Especially the lab putters sets your hands forward, where most people, bad putters, tend to set their hands back, and their hands kind of migrate through the putting stroke, and they have trouble controlling the face. So that has helped. I have seen good putters come in and want zero torque that have beautiful putting strokes that have a lot of arc to it, and zero torque really doesn't work very well for them. The putter tends to, because it doesn't rotate very much, it stays square, it really doesn't help their putting stroke, and then you're going to have to change your putting stroke to use it. So from my standpoint, it's like any other golf club. It works for some people.
Right.
It doesn't work for other people. Lab has done a wonderful job of marketing it, bringing, this stuff has been around for a while. I mean, this is not...
The concept has, yes.
Yeah, the concept's been around for a long time. They've marketed it, done a wonderful job bringing it out. It's definitely, like I said, it's helped some people. Other people, they'll sit there and, to me, if you're coming in for a putter fitting and you're not a good putter, the number one thing I want you to walk in the bay with is with an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're just like, well, fit me to a lab. Okay, well, I'm going to fit you to a lab, but it might not be the best putter for you.
Yeah.
An Odyssey Jailbird might be better. Scotty Cameron Blade might be better. Don't walk in there and just go because you've read everything and you don't know anything about your putting stroke.
Right.
So you've got to walk in. You got to walk in with an open mind, going, okay, I want to try this. I want to try that. This is what I'd like. Okay, but here's what I'd like you to try based on what I see with your putting stroke.
Right, because I have seen, this went around to social media yesterday, but it was in regards to the players in the top 25 of the world rankings. None of them have a lab.
Yeah.
And so I think it speaks to your point there about if someone is putting really well, whether they have a strong arc or maybe it's a slight arc, but if they're putting well, and if they already have a good motion with their putting stroke, the lab kind of just brings it to this point where it tries to get you straight through, and it keeps it square. Whereas, for years and decades and centuries, people have putted with a little bit of an arc in their putting stroke. Or a lot of people have.
Rocco came in a year and a half ago with, and he draws everything.
I know.
He draws his putts. He consistently 10 to 12 RPMs of draw spin on the Quintek. He brought in some lab tub, and it totally changed. He went from draw spin to cut spin.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my gosh, I'll have to read greens differently.
Right.
That'll change the way I roll the golf ball. It'll change my entire putting game, and he asked me and he goes, what do you think? I go, garage. Put him in the garage, because but that's to your point that, okay, the best players in the world, you watched the last round of the Masters, which was great to watch. You didn't see a lab putter in the last round of the Masters.
Right.
Okay. So again, the people that are putting well, and I don't care if you're a PGA Tour player or a 25 handicapper. There's one thing. If there's one thing in this game that a 25 handicapper can do as well as a tour player, is they can putt, because it doesn't take any physical strength. All it does is
you
take
put in enough time. You
put
in theory,
enough
could
time
be,
in with the right
You probably wouldn't be a
stroke and the
25
right
handicap
and the
anymore,
right putter.
but-
You can low. I mean, it's the easiest way to lower your handicap.
Yeah, for
is
sure.
to become a better putter. So you look at it from that standpoint. To me, the one thing that the lab putter does, most of the people that are successful at the lab putter have been the ones that are using broomsticks. Well, why? Because there's less rotation of the face.
Yep.
Okay. You're not really trying to rotate it. The putter's up pretty close. You're trying to get
straight up.
It's almost straight up.
Yeah.
You're trying to get zero rotation of the face. Well,
That's as close as a pendulum. That
yeah,
you can really
and there's
get.
a perfect example why that would work because it's going to work better with a long putter.
Yeah.
So
well, it's been fascinating to see that take off, but nonetheless, it's been good to get your perspective on some of these trends this year. We talked about drivers, talked about mini drivers, and then putters. And I think it is important to kind of just let people know if you're putting with something that works, or you have you're used to having such an arced putting stroke. Maybe find something with a little bit of toe hang, or something that promotes that arc or fits that arc versus going right to lab. So just have that open mind, I guess, to your point.
Yeah, well, and the thing is too, I think it's great that if I'm putting well, a lot of times people set up fittings just because they're not doing well. Well, hey, set up a fitting sometime, and you know us, we're pretty good about maybe not charging you for a fitting or whatever. Just if I got a good customer and he's putting really well, hey, let's run over to the Quintek. We finish your driver fitting. Let's hit 3 or 4 putts. Let's see what your numbers are.
Yeah,
Let's
bring your bag in for a
bring
fitting.
your bag in. Get a reference. Get a reference to what's going on.
Yep.
Hey, I'm rolling it really good. I want to see what my numbers are. Perfect.
Yeah.
I got a guy driving the ball great that's coming in this afternoon. And he's like, we're going to try a few things, but he's like, I really want to see what my numbers are right now because I'm driving it as good as I've ever driven it. We did a driver last fall, and he's like, man, this thing is just great.
Yeah.
And he goes, I want to see my numbers. Maybe we'll mess around with shafts a little bit, but at the end of the day, you want to know what you're doing when things are going good.
Yeah. So take notes from Larry and from that customer. Go get fit, and when you do go get fit, bring your whole bag because depending on how the fitting goes, there might be time to hit some putts or try something else or just to see what's going on with your game. So,
absolutely.
So Larry, thanks for stopping by, swinging by, and talking about some fitting trends that you've seen this year.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, so there were Larry and Drew talking top fitting trends of 2025, and definitely the zero torque putter definitely caught my attention. It's not a fit for every golfer, even though it helps you get square at impact. Certain players that have a natural arc to their putting stroke, it might not help them, or players that are looking for that more consistent, straight back, straight through stroke. Definitely a great option, but always go in and get fit for your putter. Make sure it truly is the right fit for you. Make sure you're getting that consistent roll every time you're, putting the putter on the ball there. So good stuff there from Larry. We'll have him on plenty more this year as he's always, so insightful, and you just learn so much just from listening to him. So great stuff there. On the YouTube side, we have Live at Lunch this week doing some club testing and kind of unique. We're comparing drivers from a 20-year span. So this week we're doing TaylorMade. We're going back to the original R7 to compare that to a TaylorMade R15 and then to their QI35. So just trying to see, how different has driver technology changed over 20 years? What performance differences do we see? So make sure you tune in for that 1 p.m. Central on our YouTube channel on Thursday. Tour Truck Series obviously continuing. If you paid attention last week, we had talking with the Cleveland rep about Keegan Bradley's wedge builds, and Keegan, the Ryder Cup captain, had a pretty solid PGA Championship. So really interesting just to see how he likes his wedges built, like some very upright, taller guy. So interesting there. And Drew's down at the Colonial getting some more content for our Tour Truck Series. So stay tuned for that in the future. And of course, every Monday, keep an eye out. We have our Fitters Choice winners, testing them head to head, and just kind of seeing the numbers we get. So stay tuned for this Monday's episode. And then on the Second Swing side, we have our major contest still going on. Yes, the PGA Championship wrapped up, but this contest is for the month of May. So you have until the end of the month to submit your entry. If you haven't, check our social media pages. It'll be linked there. Otherwise, just search for the major contest at Second Swing. Memorial Day coming up. There will be some special discounts for military members, both at store and or online and in our stores. So keep an eye out for that. And as always, make sure you check out our Best Value Club section. Really good performing clubs going for, can't beat prices and values. Anything from Strixon, ZX7 Mark IIs to your Mizuno JPX 923 Tours, Cobra Dark Speed drivers. Lots of great options with, very new technology going for great value. So good options there. But yeah, that wraps up this episode of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and follow us on whichever podcast platform you choose. And we'll see you back here next week.